The time has come for us to share our top 10 games, each of 2024. Hopefully you watch our honorable mention by Tarrant and my top games, well,
11 to 20.
11 to 20, still top games, 11 to 20 games of 2024.
And hello, it's Tarrant.
And Stella here from Meeple University. If we have any relevant videos for these games, we'll link it in the video description below. I have to mention where we get this game as usual. We can receive that from review copy, we can be commissioned to do any videos for these games, or we can purchase the game, but this is just our opinion. In this video, this is our opinion.
Yes, we have done our level best to only include games that were actually released within 2024. That can be nebulous at times when things are released near the end of the year, but we have done our best. I don't think there's anything here that's not available yet, although some has been certainly widely seen and reviewed.
Yes.
And so I think let's get straight into it. And we'll begin with my number 10 game for the year. My number 10 game for the year is Asian Tigers. So this
Wow.
this is from Pythagoras.
Sorry. Never mind.
This is from Pythagoras. It's designed by Paolo and Nuno, who are known for Madeira and Panamax. And this is a very kind of old spreadsheety Euro. Not the prettiest game out there, but very interesting and very interactive because a lot of the points are coming from your ability to win area majorities in certain locations. It has a clever worker placement mechanism where there are 3 colors of worker, and each of the 4 Asian economies that we're dealing with has 3 slots in it. And there's a powerful slot, which is expensive for you, but has more options. There's a weaker slot, which is not as good, doesn't cost as much. But once one of the worker colors has gone into one of those slots, that's the only worker color that can go there. And the other 2 slots have to be different colors. So you have these 10 workers in the different colors, and the order is randomized for you at the start of the round. So it gives you a chance to kind of plan ahead and look at when you need to take a certain action and when someone else might ruin a color for you. Then every turn is just building an infrastructure. So I could be building a laboratory, or I could be building a factory in one of these economies. As I'm doing that, it might give me goods I can sell onto the market because that can unlock some endgame objectives, or it might just be giving me resources or building up my area majority there. You kind of, again, it doesn't feel very thematic, but as you take bits off your board, you're going to clear up spaces that give you other bonuses, and trying to optimize the times to get them is quite an interesting thing, and a couple of them are competitive as well. So yeah, quite an interactive Euro. Plays in a neat bit of time and quite different to what else is out there. So
yeah,
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I do enjoy the randomness of the workers that you can put, and you can also look ahead what other players are having, and with that, okay, that player can't go to this spot because they don't have the right worker. But it also drive timing, like sometimes you just want to quickly go there before anyone else put their meeples there to set the colors of that action space.
Yes.
My number 10 is Black Forest, the board game, not the cake. So Black Forest, another SN released, kind of like spiritual successor from Glass Road, which we haven't actually played. What I love about it is the resource management rondel puzzle. Rather than like getting resources and putting it out, so you put it all in these 2 rondels, which you want to have to do your actions, but you must time it right because you also want to do this other resource, which is glass, which happens automatically as soon as you have all of the resources on the board, all type of resources on one rondel. So you track it by moving your rondel around, or like a clock.
Yes.
Hands.
Little clock hands.
Yes. So once you have it, so sometimes that's good, but sometimes you want to time it so that, okay, I want to make sure that I spend this resource first, because if you have all of the resources and then the clock hand move, and then you automatically lose that resource and then you gain glass.
Yes.
So that timing mechanics is really good. And the rest of it, you going around the board to activate different actions, which is also satisfying to do.
My 9th favourite game for the year, and this is quite unusual for me, this is a solo game. I don't play a lot of solo games. This is a little card solo game called Kingdom Legacy by Fricks Games.
who did Terraforming Mars.
Yes.
It's one of the brothers.
Yes, and it is... What I really liked about this game is the way it felt. It was a gentle solitaire type of game. It was a little bit... it was pretty sandbox for a card game. And it kind of had the same level of thinkiness that playing a normal card game of solitaire would, like playing Klondike Solitaire. And I haven't really come across that in the solo space very often. Usually
Isla's a bit like that, maybe. Isla, something shiny.
Perhaps that's a story one that's probably at that.
Yes, yeah. It's more story here.
Yeah. This one, you start with 10 cards and there's a deck of cards you can take from. And you deal out 4 cards and each of them has an upgrade cost. And you upgrade it by flipping it or rotating it, so you have to keep the order of the cards perfect. That's one problem with the game. At one point I dropped my deck and I thought I'd completely ruined the game, but I managed to work out where they were.
Yeah, okay.
So you can do 1 upgrade per hand, and you can always add 2 cards to get extra resources, but it means you've gone through more cards for a single upgrade. And you just kind of play through like that, and then when your deck is empty, you add 2 new cards to it automatically, and some of them give you objectives to go and chase, and some of them are bad, and you have to figure out how to defend against them. And then you just shuffle and keep going. And it's pleasant. You just go through this thing over sort of 4 to 6 hours of play. You get objectives, and you kind of chase them. You get to the end, and you don't really know whether you've done well or not. You put your score into the website, and it tells you what other people have got.
Yeah.
So it's very sandbox in that way, but it was a very enjoyable play and very different. So yeah, I can highly recommend the experience that this game offers.
I wish we have 2 copies.
Yes, because you do sticker things and mark things off, so it is a one and done game.
Indeed. Now this game we originally played the prototype and we recently played the production copy. Things has changed only a little bit. The balancing is Snow Crest. So this is a card game with other resources as well. It's a 3x3 grid, and you are mainly on your turn. You either play a card paying the cost onto your grid, or flip your card that's already on your grid to activate it. Once you have 3 diagonal or orthogonal cards flipped or actioned, then it's the income turn.
Yes, the rests, maybe.
Sorry,
I can't remember the exact term because every game that has a rest turn has a different. But it's the reset turn.
Reset turn. That's it. So that's not an option. So once you have that, you must reset. So you flip everything. You gain the resources. On some cards, the resources appear when they're activated, or some card that is not activated, you get the resource. So, and then there are the other things. You basically need to get scrolls to win points. Scrolls are points, and you need to kind of like like fighting dragon to get the scroll, but you don't know exactly what it's gonna do. It has got requirements, so you must like discard your card, or you must destroy one of your buildings. But then there are other ways to mitigate, like one of the cards has got actions that you can ignore one requirement. That's the main way of getting points. The other way of mitigating it is this track where you can push. If you can't meet the requirements, you still get the points, but then it gets to negative and negative. And you have to manage it as well. I mean, there are ways to push it to positive, but if you get to the most negative part and you start getting negative tokens, which you can't refund. So it's very elegant, very easy to play. The icons are very friendly, and you just basically trying to maximize your turn. And very satisfying as well. That's like building your tableau, which is your card. What you're gonna do, you're gonna keep gaining these resources, because gaining resources are not automatic. It's pretty hard sometimes to gain certain resources. So if you have the right cards and then you convert that with the actions to things that you need, then that's it. And that's different every game as well.
Yeah, there's surprisingly many paths to victory and different ways that you can chase points. And a lot of the ways to get points are deceptively interactive as well. There's timing ones on emptying certain cards first.
Oh, yes.
There's one where you have to bid one of your resources, the prayer bells, and then you're giving everyone else the opportunity to potentially get more, but you could even be baiting them to spend a lot
Yes.
at once, and then you come in and get a bunch of actions cheaply. So,
Yep.
yeah, there's a lot of clever in there. And at the end, I don't think I've seen a mechanism really like it, but at the end, you cash everything in for resources, but you don't just turn those resources into points. Those resources are majority. So whoever has the most in a given resource gets the points. There's
Yep.
a lot of clever stuff in what is quite a compact game.
Yeah, I know. It's very satisfying. You have to like, if you like kind of like that tile placement, like it has got a lot of tile placement feeling to it. So if you like that sort of things, Snowcrest is one to look for.
Number 8 for me is a game that we just heard Stella speak about, Black Forest from Feuerlandspiele. This is the bit I'll focus on. It's a game that has that very modern Rosenberg feel, because it's Uwe Rosenberg with Tito Lorenz. And it has very much that kind of Ottawa, to a lesser extent Feast of Odin feel, where you've got a lot of choice over what actions you're going to take. It's not that competitive, the actions you're going to take out on the board when you're moving around. You can't really block things out forever.
Yes.
You can move stuff around, which is nice. It creates a bit of timing pressure, and sometimes means you have to pay more stuff, but you can kind of do what you want out there. But then you're also building up your own little farm.
Yes.
And taking actions that let you build up lots of ponds so that you can take the action that gives you lots of stuff for each of your ponds. And that part is fun. That's got a very,
It's really fun,
it's got a very
yes.
Ottawa type of feel.
I'll leave that for you to mention, Tarrant.
But then it comes back to something that's a bit more aggressive than those other Rosenberg games, in that there's a whole lot of buildings, and you get a lot of your points from constructing buildings, but you also want to construct the buildings that give you the best benefits. And there's one of each. It's got a Cavernous style, huge tableau
Spread,
of
yeah.
buildings. So you're racing to get these buildings. There's a few high scoring ones that are very expensive that you're racing to get as well. You have to have space on your board to put them. So yeah, it creates this bit of tension, and what is quite a satisfying, it's a satisfying, gentle experience, but it has those moments of tension, which I think is very good.
Yep.
And of course, you're farming animals as always.
Satisfying, yep.
There's stables for animals and things like that.
Yeah, and you can build like your tableaus as well with like lots of like farms,
Yep.
forests. It just like could go everywhere. My number 8 is Salt Fjord, which is a spiritual successor from Santa Maria. Different theme. So this is a dice drafting game where you take the dice and put it on your own player board, activating the roll column. So the roll column, which you also build. So you need to build buildings or gain resources and then turn the building. And so that your action becoming more and more powerful as the game goes. Because, you know, you go down the column, down the row, and activating each building that you pass. And then the dice will stack there.
Yeah, it's a 6x6 grid,
Yes.
and you build them up in a Tetris-y way, like often you do, but then the dice will activate the rows and columns.
That is great, but the action is also very interesting. The actions, that's basically what dictates what action you do in the game. Like sailing your fishing boat, or you need to upgrade your other actions, like I said, track, that gives you even stronger actions in the game. You can fulfill orders. I feel like this is one of those games that I wish that there's going to be one more round. With just like so many good things I want to do in the game.
It is a very quick game. It's a 3-round game, and we can almost finish a game in half an hour, 45 minutes.
Yes, it is that
It does
quick.
play through very quickly, especially
Yes.
at 2 players.
Yeah, it's very satisfying game, very fun game. It's just beautiful. Fishing village, blue and ships. I mean, that's just extra. But really fun gameplay.
And so we go to my number 7. My number 7 is Sunavalo from Game Builders. So this was an Essen release, designed 2-player game, and really one of the...
Which is in my top 20.
It's in the lower part of your top 20 as well, and it's really one of the smartest 2-player games out there, designed 2-player games. It is, the simple part of the game, the core of it is that you're building up columns of matching cards. You get a benefit for having rows as well, so there's an incentive to do that, but you're building up columns, and every time you put a card in a column, it activates the whole column, so they get stronger as the game goes on. And it's kind of doing that basic thing of getting resources and then fulfilling contracts. It has limited storage, so you have to time it all right. But the core of the game is in the card drafting mechanism. You have 3 cards above your board, there's 3 cards above your opponent's board, and there's 3 cards in the middle. If you want to get a card from the middle, it's going to cost its normal price plus a pretty big excessive cost. But when you take a card to your tableau, you don't own it yet, but you set its price. There's a minimum that you have to set, but you can set it at more. And then if you buy your own card, you just discard those. If you buy a card from your opponent's tableau, which is also available to you, you have to pay them what they have set the price at. And so it gives you this really brilliant way of constantly looking at what cards your opponents need and using the opportunity to take it and either just stash it above your board with a high price on it so they can't take it, or leave it there for them to get. It completely takes the top, it almost completely takes top decking out of the game. It costs you 3 extra resources to get a card that's just top decked up there. So it's very, very expensive. And again, you look at the timing. I mentioned the limited storage before. There's a big part of looking at what the other player has and recognizing, all right, well, if I make these resources as part of the price, I know they can't get it for at least a turn. Or it's going to cost them a lot of their wilds to get it. So very, very clever. And it ends up being a very tight experience because you're also racing for the contracts. Every contract has a high value one and a low value one. And so there's a lot of that shared stuff that you're chasing after as well. Really well put together game.
So that takes it to my number 7, which is Windmill Valley. So this is by Danny Garcia, who also designed Daitoshi, which I've mentioned in the 11 to 20 game. And Windmill Valley is such a satisfying wheel-turning rondel game. It's set in Amsterdam, which is with the windmill. That's how it is. There's a little bit of interaction. I don't mind if a game doesn't have that much interaction. So a bit of interaction in terms of like how fast the water goes. That means that how fast you turn your wheels, each action, which is obviously mitigated. It's like the modern game would have some sort of mitigation, right? With that sort of thing. So you turn your wheel and you activate the left and the right wheel. Oh, the left or right. Or if you upgraded your wheel, you can activate both wheels. And that's how you actually drive the actions on the game. And there are contract fulfillment, there's engine building as well. That wheel turning thing is it has got Great Western Trail feeling, where sometimes you can go fast, but sometimes you can go slow as well. Like to a certain degree, you can modify that and you're gonna keep coming back to that action to just focus on that, or you just want to do this one and then maybe other times you could just want to go around faster. And the other unique thing is that the 2 wheels, they're not the same size. So when you turn it around back to original position on the left, and it's not the same one on the right.
Yes, you have to plan that ahead pretty well.
Yeah. So a very, very good, beautiful looking game as well. And we've been to Netherlands recently, so saw all the windmills. At the time, there was no tulips, unfortunately. But
wrong season.
Yeah, cheap season. Windmill Valley.
So we move on to my number 6, and my number 6 is This Bed Is Mine. And
now people know that we fight on the bed. No, I'm kidding. This bed is mine.
Something that comes through for me, I always have a lot of big and heavy games in here, but a light, deep 2-player abstract game. It's been the hallmark, it's been the workhorse of gaming for so long. I mean, it's what Go is, it's what checkers is. Chess is a little more complex, but a game where it's 2 players and you can teach the rules in 5 minutes and then play a whole lot of really deep games. There's still a great place for that sort of game and a good version of that sort of game. I mean, last year Orion Duel was my second top game. Yeah. This year it is This Bed Is Mine, and it's such a clever little concept. Each player has pieces. You're playing as cats versus dogs, but each player has these pieces that are the shapes of the digital clock digits from 1 to 9, and you go back and forward placing them into a grid, and you're trying to fence off areas where the fences that are yours have a higher sum of numbers than the fences that are your opponents. And you score points based on how much of the total. You get the whole area to yourself if you have the highest value, and whoever carves off the most area on the bed is the winner.
Yeah.
And that's as
Very
simple as that.
simple,
You can
very
go and play it now. You don't score a 1x1 square. That's like the only rule I missed. And I find it to be, it's a really clever game because they've kind of just thought of a concept and said, all right, this is a game now. But it introduces these interesting tactical things where you're trying to make these like long corridory type things that don't have space for your opponent to break them up and claim them. But then it ends up with this funny thing where the number 7 is so powerful because you can fit it into these little tight nooks.
Yeah.
And if you split a big section into 2 sections with your 7, you've added 7 to your value of both halves. You can claim it. It's very clever that way. So
they're using the game box as well as part of the game component.
It is, yes. They've got a nice little plastic tray and it goes up on the bed, kind of like Boop. And
yeah, kind of like Boop. It's almost like, it's just like, what is it? Dogs and cats?
It's dogs versus cats.
Yeah, trying to fight over for the space on the bed.
Yeah, and there's an extra module in there where there's like yarn balls and something that dogs eat, dog chew toys or something, and you're also fighting for majorities of those. Just a little addition to it. So it's a very, very clever game.
Anyone can play that as well, families.
Yes.
So now my number 6 is Harmonies. I know Tarrant mentioned in the honorable mention, which is a very clever drafting game where you fill up the board. It almost feels a bit like Azul and Cascadia, where not Azul, Cascadia, more Cascadia than Azul. So you take the pieces and you're trying to build things on your board. You can stack it up and make it like call it 3, or you can make water features like lake or whatever, rivers. And each one has got scoring rules, but also you trying to fill up making this ecosystem for the animals. So you can draft the card and then making it also on your board to score points. And lots of these cards, you have to form that structure multiple times to score higher and higher. So Tarrant say that it didn't quite make his top 10 because the drafting of the pieces it could be a bit stale. So there should be maybe a way to refresh it so that the pieces are different for especially 2-player games.
Yes, certainly. That was my comment with the honourable mention. I think it is in this Cascadia style of doing tile placement and having 2 overlapping ways of scoring that you've got to optimise. Really, really fun puzzle. Yep. I find the market gets a bit stale and a bit subject to top deck.
Yep. And that's what I love about it, not what you just said, but multiple way of scoring with the cards. And even the cards, because you can fulfill multiple times. And then timing is also important because there are cards that look similar and then you can just fulfill this one. And you must put a piece on top of certain structures. Once it's there, you can't really put a piece on there. If other cards requires you to put piece on that structure, you can't do it anymore. So try not to get these things overlap, which I did wrong the first time I played this. Like, oh, I can do this. Oh no, like you can't put 2 pieces on the same structure. So you have to use other scoring cards to score different points, not in the same structure. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. So it's very satisfying for me like that.
Number 5 for me is Flatiron. It's a designed 2-player game. It is a sort of early 20th century industrial theme, which I just really like. I've always liked looking at the Flatiron building, so the fact that you build it in 3D is an immediate selling point. Yeah. It's maybe not as cutthroat a 2-player game as I often go for, but it joins a lot of mechanisms together in a very satisfying way. It's a worker movement game with 5 action spaces. So you've always got 3 spaces to choose from, as in not the one you're in and not the one your opponent's in. And you're going around trying to, buy the best cards and put them into your tableau, because as your tableau builds, it makes a certain action space more powerful. And then within that, you're trying to build the Flatiron building by strategically putting colours of pillars in at the right times. And you're trying to do things with real timing so that your opponent can't get the benefit from what you've just done. And how that's going to play out varies a lot between games based on what cards come out, what cards players choose to buy, what objectives are in play, and what newspapers are in play. There's this interesting little mechanism where one action is the newspaper action, and players can go to a certain space and use that over and over until someone else plays a newspaper and it replaces it. So it gives you this chance to dangle an action in front of your opponent and then take it away. So it has all those hallmarks of a push and pull two-player game with critical timing, but not in a super aggressive way. It can play at different paces, which I quite like. You can have these games where everyone just hangs around on the ground floor building a huge engine, and then the building gets constructed in like, not 3 rounds,
2 seconds.
but gets constructed very quickly. Or you could be building very gradually as you go along and getting the cards as they come out. It's just open for a lot of that variety, and I really like it. I think it is, I think it hits a lot of goals for a two-player game, so Flatiron.
All right, my number 5 is Fairy Ring.
And my number 4 is Fairy Ring.
Ooh.
So we'll talk about this
We
together.
share notes. Just FYI, we did this list independently. So I would be protective, and then I'm not sharing my list with Tarrant, and then Tarrant do his list separately from me. So we don't know each other until it's ready. So, and we don't change anything after that. So Fairy Ring.
Fairy Ring. So this game is great. This is a light game. It is, it's going to be a filler or a family game. It just has this really clever hook. So the basic part you've seen a million times. It's a card drafting game. You take a card, you add it to your tableau, you add it to a column, and it makes that column more powerful with cards of the same type. Or you can add it horizontally and have lots of cards of different types. That's stuff we've seen before. But everyone's tableau it forms a ring around the table. And the card you pick also has a movement value on it, and you move your fairy around the ring. So sometimes it's going to land on your card, sometimes it's going to land on your opponent's. And when it lands on your card, you trigger that card. When it lands on an opponent's card, they score for that card, and you score for your best mushroom of the same type. So it has this...
And that is my favorite part of the game.
It's great. It's the different thing. I've never seen anything like it. That's the interplay between the game. You can see where you can score, or you can look at, all right, well, I'm never going to activate that guy's strongest mushroom. I've got to try to avoid it. There's this other mushroom that's in there where it scores when players go past it rather than landing on it. So if you build up big on those, it now becomes a matter of, all right, I have to try to not give you 8 points by rocketing past. If I land on it, it doesn't trigger though.
Yeah, yes.
But then none of your stuff triggers as well.
It's so satisfying like that. I mean, it might as well call Mushroom Ring, but then so many mushroom games this year came out. Missalia, and then, I don't know, there are 3 Missalias. I don't know. There's Mushroom something. So it's so satisfying what Tarrant said before, where you kind of like trying to see, okay, you want to land on that. Like if they land on that, you get to activate something as well. That's just so good. It's almost like Space Base doing something out of turn. So
you are constantly watching to make sure, like everyone drafts at the same time, and then you're watching to make sure that you score when you're supposed to. You don't have a huge amount of control, let's be honest. It is a bit of a fluky kind of game. So if you really like to not have any randomness, it's probably not for you. But it's
just well balanced still, I think.
It's still, I mean, it's you could king make. It's got all these things that should be bad, but it's just really clever and really fun. So that's why it's so high up both our lists.
All right, so now it's my number 4. Is Rebel Princess. So this is technically I got it from SN last year, but then another company distributed. So it's kind of like 2024 games.
Yep. With a deluxeified version.
That's correct. And I didn't play it until this year. So Rebel Princess is a trick-taking game where The theme is amazing. You are a princess. You are a rebel princess. You're trying not to marry Prince Charming because you are a rebel, basically. And each player has got asymmetric power, slightly asymmetric power, and those are the princes like Cinderella, Snow White, I don't know who else, Mulan, and so on, the fairy tale princess. And it's a trick-taking game that is very quick to play. It plays a lot of players, and you are trying. It's very simple. The premise is very simple as well. You try not to win the trick with Prince Charming or Frog Prince.
Yes, it's very much, it's derived from Hearts,
Yeah.
the Microsoft Hearts that you would have played on your Windows 95 computers. There's one suit you're trying to avoid and one specific card you're really trying to avoid.
Yeah, it's very fun trick-taking game, and there are a lot of variability as well. The asymmetric powers that I mentioned coming from the princess, and then the round cards that change the rules a little bit each time.
Yes, it's very much got that modernized version of the classic game.
Yes.
It makes it very accessible. My number 3 for the year is The Veil of Eternity. This was Fringe 2023-2024, came out very early in the year, and this was in your list as well, number 11. Very, very clever card drafting game. And when I say drafting, it's an open draft, it's a snake draft. So every round there will be cards, twice as many as the players that come in, and you will pick them into your hand, and then from your hand you can play them, or you can hang on to them and discard them as part of the effects of other cards. And you're really trying to just hunt for these combos, hunt for really broken combos that will give you a whole lot of points, because some of them are going to score comboing based on other things you have. Some of them score of their own right. Some of them will make cards get discarded. There's just lots of really clever little combos, and you've got to look through them and hunt for the best way to make them score points. It's very satisfying. And the other thing that works really well here, and it's something I'd kind of been looking out for a long time, but no one had really executed it this well, is you've got your currency in the form of stones, which are worth 1, 3, and 6 points, but you're not allowed to make free change, and you're limited to the specific number of stones, not the value of stones you can hold. And so some cards will give you incomes of different stone types, and you have to really manage that, and it's done in a very clever way.
Yeah, that is a really, really good part of the game.
And because it is a snake draft,
It's kind of like that sort of a Catan snake draft like that to start. It's just whether you want to leave it for opponents or not, like you take the good one, you want that one, but then I think probably the optimum one is the one that does snake draft, so you can get two things at the same time.
the game is very neat, it's very compact. I know there is an expansion out there now, which we haven't played yet. What it's doing doesn't feel super new. It feels really optimized. It feels really well designed.
My number 3 is Andromeda's Age. Now, this is, again, the spiritual successors here. Not that many, but this is spiritual successors of Dwellings of Eldervale, which
was your number 4 in the year it was released.
Yeah. It's also my favorite now. It's like going up a step. So Andromeda's Age feels a lot like Dwellings of Eldervale, but set in the space. Like, now, this is nothing to do with the theme. So this is to do for me more with the mechanic. So it has got the mechanic of putting your workers out there and doing something. And then when you retrieve your workers, now you activate your building. So I just love that mechanic. So it makes it feel, you have to balance how many workers you do and then how often do you do that action. Like, you kind of like, do you want it often and then keep activating your building? If you have great building, then it'll be very powerful to keep activating it. And then with this Andromeda's Edge, the activation is, I think, it's better than Dwellings.
It's definitely different. That is
Yes.
the biggest thing that is different. In Dwellings, when you retrieved, you could essentially activate one building with each. In Andromeda's Edge, when you bring a piece back, you can essentially use it with some energy resources to activate an entire row of your tableau.
Yeah.
So you can really get a huge tableau engine rolling, much
Yep.
more so than you could in Dwellings.
So good.
The rest of the game is actually quite similar to Dwellings.
That's
That is
correct.
the-
It's
that is
different
the
theme.
biggest thing that's different.
And check Tarrant's How to Play video as well. We'll definitely link that below. It's just you actually explain the variant as well, which is the 2 versus 2. So it just gives a different way of playing it, a different mean. Like one person can be, or I'm just gonna not gonna do much of anything, so that person can gain even more points for the team. It's like you would sit opposite each other, and it's like team A, team B, team A, team B, like that, and it's a great game.
And so we come to my number 2, and I will say firstly, the top 2, both of my top 2, very close. Probably the best games for a few years. I would rank them both ahead of the last couple of number 1s. And in the heavy space, because they're both heavier games, maybe back even longer. Both very, very good games. You know, I often say this sort of thing in...
What is it? Sorry.
I often say this sort of thing in reviews. You know, the type of Euro that I really like is one where I'm constantly... I could have the optimal plan laid out in front of me, but I really like having to constantly ask the question, do I do this action now, or will something happen that takes that action away from me and makes it less efficient? I really like that.
Yeah.
I like it when I don't like it to completely destroy your game, but it should be worth like 5 or 10% of your points to do the right action at the wrong time because something else happens. And you see that really throughout my top 2. So my number 2 is SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. What I really like about the game is that all the actions have timing engaged in them, and you can kind of do your own thing. You're a lot of what you're doing is your own thing. You're looking for cards and trying to build your incomes and get your probes to the right places. But everything is so linked in with timing for what other players do. So the most clever thing is the way the solar system rotates. You've got 3 rings of the solar system that's moving the planets around, and those will move based on when certain players take actions, specifically the technology upgrade action. And it's going to move these pieces around, and you want to get your probes into space. You want to move them efficiently. So if you know where your probe has to go, you want to get it into play when the planets are aligned, when they're in the right spot. And you've got a choice on whether you make the planets rotate or not, because it costs you 6 popularity, reputation, the microphone. It costs you 6 microphone to do this action, but you can have up to 10 microphone. So you can wait a little bit and get that optimized. Yeah. Then on top of that, when you're settling on planets, there's a benefit for going first, but then that opens things cheaper for everyone else. There's high things to race for there. There's all these little area controls around the board, which again depend on... There's an incentive for going there early. There's an incentive for going there later because later breaks the tie. And you have to optimize the time because when you probe the stars, which things you probe are based on what cards are in the display and where your probe is and where Earth is. So all of these things are so interlinked. And then you got the aliens at the end where they score in different ways, and they can score in area majorities or who gets there first or last and things like that. So all these little things which are so timing dependent while you're still managing a pretty fun little personal puzzle. So I really like that. I really like that the actions you take in SETI are... There's nothing super complex or super new. Other than the solar system, a lot of what's been brought together for the game feels very familiar, but feels really well optimized together with that solar system rotation. So it's a very, very strong game.
Rotating board?
Yes.
It's not just a gimmick.
It's not. It works. It fits with the theme. It fits with the mechanism. It's a very well put together game.
What I haven't mentioned, what I love about it, is that you are encouraged to score points.
And this was in your...
That's right.
I think it was 19th for you, sorry.
So it's the way you being encouraged to score points within game, because then you get to pick the better objective for end game scoring.
Yeah, it's got... You see that You're seeing that... I think I'm seeing that in a lot more games these days where... Score early versus score late has different incentives. Arc Nova was very big with that. Score early on one track and get money. Score early on the other track and get upgrades. I saw Luthier did that this year. They kind of took the Arc Nova mechanism. And this one does it in a slightly different way with the ability to choose race ahead on points, and you've got the ability to choose a better scoring objective, which will probably earn you
it's quite a lot.
10, 15 more points than someone who gets there later but has been focusing on doing actions that give them income. And they may catch up that 10 or 15 points. And we're talking a game where 200-ish is the score. They may catch up later with the better engine, but they may not because they've got to make up more of a gap.
Yeah. Very, I don't always see Tarrant like so passionate talking about a game, and then this is like every time he explains about this game or talk to someone else about this game, he'll be like this is like very fiery. But
yeah, and I can see this. I know this has been a very popular one, and I can see it persisting and being looked back on 10 years from now as a really strong game.
Yes. So now number 2 now, huh? My number 2.
Yours.
Yes, it's Mythwin. So it's not Mistwin, which is earlier I've mentioned. Mythwin, which is a cooperative game. This is the second cooperative game in my list this year. I'm a little bit more pickier and pickier when it comes to cooperative game. I think I kind of like gone past like pandemic style of cooperative game where, you know, there's a possibility alpha players are going to control it, fighting fires. But this is, in this game, in Mythwin, if you think of Stardew Valley, the video game, and then I know that there's Stardew Valley, the board game. Now, Mythwin, I would say, is more, the feel is more like Stardew Valley, the board game, rather than Stardew Valley, the board game itself.
Yes.
So it's a cooperative game where you are one of the characters, and you could be farmers, and you are working together to develop the village, and you are gathering resources together, you are fulfilling contract, you are also adventuring. There's a bit of a story as well, which I love, and you trying to fulfill orders, and then eventually you want to upgrade your character to so that they can do better actions, stronger actions, and that carries over to the next game. So, and you have your own player boards.
You have your own character with your own actions.
No, the tray. Player tray, sorry, yes. Player tray. Interesting way of producing goods, and each character is asymmetric. Yeah,
they've really, you spoke about Stardew Valley. I haven't seen a board game that's captured it.
Very sandboxy.
Got the asymmetry. It's sandboxy. You know, when we play Stardew Valley, you went and built the farm, and I would go mining and chopping up rocks, and it has that feel.
Yes.
If you're playing the farmer, you've got your little farm board, and every time it's your turn, you can do a couple of farming actions. The game is going to then overgrow you again gradually over time. You can buy tools, you can use them to do better, and that will allow you, year by year, round by round, to generate more income. It's very much like that sandbox video game. And then meanwhile, the main board has all these cards and adventures and new actions, and collectively you're upgrading buildings in the central area, which again is so Stardew Valley, when you're bringing things back to life, and you just kind of you just go through it round by round.
Okay, who's gonna get this action, you know, this dice? Is that for me or is that you? You know, I'm planning to do this, you're planning to do that. All right, who should get this round?
There's 2 different colours of dice. They could be strong or weak ones. You have to pay to go and get them. Yeah, I'm saying it's kind of just this breezy, leisurely game, and it's in a style that I should have done an honourable mention for this. Actually, I'd forgotten about it because they managed to hit something that feels so different to anything else.
So is this now officially your honourable mention, number 6?
I'll mention it very honourably, yes. Yeah. It reminds me of the breeziness of Kingdom Legacy, actually, in a different way.
Yes.
But, yeah, just breezy and very well designed component-wise as well, because it's so easily savable. You mentioned the game tray.
In between games.
You just close it. The main board has little inserts where the cards and things you've built go, so you can just split it apart and put it back in the box and then break it straight out. It doesn't have to stay on the table for months on end to play it.
I think it will take something like this to win me over for a cooperative game. I mean, we see this one and we see the other one earlier with Daybreak. That's very different feeling and could be almost like asymmetric or like a very involved that no one player can control everything.
Yeah. This is, I mean, it's definitely not for everyone. It's not going to scratch the itch of someone who wants a really heavy puzzle.
Yes, yes.
But it's going to scratch the itch of someone who wants
Sandbox.
a gentle sandbox,
That's
do your
right,
own
yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah,
Like Kingdom Legacy
it's so well
design.
designed for what it was trying to
Yeah.
achieve.
Yeah, that's why it's number 2. What's your number 1 now, Tarrant?
My number 1. So everything I said at the introduction to SETI still applies. My number 1 is Terminus. So this was a release by
Train game.
Inside Out Games, and it is 2 really great things about this game. So the action selection mechanism, unlimited advancement rondel, so kind of like your Heaven and Ale, Lignum, that sort of thing. But instead of being once around the board, like most of those are, you go 3 times around the board. And it's not a time track. It's not always who's at the end. You're still taking turns in turn order. So there's 6 action spots, each of which has a few options in this rondel. So you could theoretically take 18 actions per round. But firstly, you probably wouldn't be able to have enough money to do 18 actions. So let's take that off the table. But every action is so what other players do, the timing, wanting to do something before somebody else is so baked into every single action in this game.
Yes.
You're constantly making really hard decisions about, do I skip 4 potential actions and jump a long way ahead because I really want this? And how it achieves that, there's...
You can't come back as well. You can't, you can come back.
You've got to do a full lap
yes,
to come back.
full lap and to come back. And you also have limited capacity for storage, which makes it really tight. Really tight.
Limited capacity for storage, and there's 3 markets. 3 of the 4 types of resources just have cost markets. And if you get there early, it's going to be cheap. And if you get there late and no one's spent stuff back, it's going to be expensive. But how much of it do you buy when it's cheap? You're limited to only holding 8 resources at once. Then one of them, which is the traffic cones, has a different thing. That's more opportunistic, because you put things in from top to bottom in the column, and sometimes the column is really almost empty, and so going there is kind of useless. So that side of things is really linked in with timing.
Very.
There's player powers, which are almost kind of like the food chain magnate milestones in terms of how much they set your strategy. You can race ahead to get that, or you could wait to see what's left. So there's all of that going on. Then you come down to a board where there's all these city blocks, and there's train line locations running between them, and a few of the blocks have potential train line places for it. And you're trying to build up a train network. It's a single line, so you can only go off the end of one line.
Yes.
You're trying to go around.
It's interactive as well, that part.
It's very interactive, yes. You're trying to go around and get your stations in certain locations, because almost all your points come from these objective cards that you take and that everyone can see, where is your station in a certain district or next to a certain type of building or things like that. But how it's set up, it gets really tight as the game goes on. So again, timing comes into it. You've got to work out, I need to build now because that might get chopped off, and then my ability to score here, and here is gone. But it's got this really Terra Mystica-y thing as well. And Terra Mystica,
not as brutal.
It's not as... elements of it.
Elements of it, yeah.
Elements of it are. Terra Mystica did this brilliant thing that I don't think everyone else copied enough, and that is they forced interaction by giving you benefits for building near other people and making it prohibitively expensive to build away from other people, at least early in the game. So it forces everyone to be clustered in the same place. And then later on, when you've got the resources to do stuff, it becomes super competitive on, all right, now I really need that. That guy also wants it because they're already there. This game does that as well, because if you're in a clustered space, you can link into other players' trains. When you do that, you both get a benefit. So there's the Terra Mystica power generating thing. It's a way of getting money. It gives you access to other actions. It also lets you spread your wings more quickly, because the station spaces get filled up, and you kind of need to go through other people's spaces to get there.
That's true.
So it forces you into the same cluster of the board, and therefore makes it really timing critical to get out of where you may have got yourself hemmed into. So yeah, all of these things. It's Terra Mystica with trains, and I like trains.
All right,
and
you sold me
making it
again. All
work.
right, that's my number 21.
Yeah, really solid game.
Yeah.
Thrives with more players. I would say we have played it with the two player has a dummy player who is dumb as a box of hammers. Doesn't really work. So
Yeah, like
it
more
does
than
have
two players,
a reverse side for 3, but yeah, play it with 3, 4, or 5. Really build it up. Yeah, it's excellent. It hits really tough decisions on timing constantly, and that is what I like. So yeah, Terminus and SETI, both very, very strong games. I think the strongest heavy Euros for at least 3 or 4 years.
Wow, that's a big thing, Tarrant.
Very positive.
Yeah. So well done, Terminus. Well, now my number 1, isn't it? That's the last game.
We reached the end.
Yeah, we reached the end. So if you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe if you like. We've got things like this. We've got Tarrant's How to Play and all the reference of other videos down in the description. And see you later. Kidding. My number 1 game is Star Trek Captain's Chair. This is a Essen release. No, not Essen release. After Essen release, I think. So this is by WizKids. David Turchi and Nigel Buckle. Sorry, Nigel. Were the designer, and this is drawing inspiration from Imperium Classics. So this is essentially an engine building. You imagine Dominion with different expansions. So there are cards that are staying out and then staying there until another effect removes the card. And it's essentially engine building with 3 actions. Yeah. But the more powerful cards you put out there, the more things you can do. There are some cards with 3 actions. There are cards that give you actions, more actions. Like the actions is indicated by this chip. Looks like Star Trek. I'm a big Star Trek fan, okay?
Yes,
big
helps.
Star Trek fan, that helps. And it's just like the chip that you use, you see like in Star Trek series. It's just like the chip that...
On a Borg's head or something?
No, not at all, not at all. Sorry, it's nothing bleak like that. But hang on, there are... Now I'm not going to spoil. Borg's not always bad.
Back to the game.
Okay, back to the game. Sorry, I'm just like, I'm about to argue after this video. So it's very satisfying engine building where you are encouraged to recycle your deck sooner than later by, discarding cards, because you can keep your cards or discard card every turn, but you are encouraged to recycle your card often because when you do that, you gain an upgrade card. The first few cards are random, but after that, the cards you can pick, pay the costs. This one is you have to pay the cost, and then it becomes part of your deck. And these are very powerful cards. Sometimes they even have like this once-off effect, and sometimes it's just things that you wanna work towards the goal, which is the victory points. Now the other smart thing is that there are 2 endgame conditions. First one is if the goal pile supply is done, or there is a stack of cards called incident cards, and they're kind of like the bad cards in the game. So if that pile is gone, certain actions that cause you draw that card, maybe some powerful actions that gives you that incident card. So when the deck is empty, then that's also another game end trigger, and whoever's got the most of those cards lose. And this is 1 or 2 player game. So, if you got the more card, and then the other player is the winner.
Yeah, it's a real... You can see... I think they've taken the good parts of Imperium Classics.
Classic, yeah.
It's a really tight and quite short. You have to be very efficient with your turns because it does actually move to the end game condition quite quickly. Yeah. As you say, it's like Dominion with every good expansion crammed into a really compact deck building game. Personal deck, personal reserve, cards in the market,
there's also
typical
card in the
kind
market.
of thing.
Yeah.
Area control, so some of your actions
That's right.
let you put things out on these shared locations, which are quite valuable that you want to beat your opponent in to take, or you can get you can just go there and get some benefits for contributing to trying to get it, or instead of going there, you can put those tokens on some of your locations and make their actions more powerful while they're there. You've got tracks that combo with icons, so it's got this other thing where you want to get all the icons on the board at once and then cash them in for a benefit. So almost every deck building mechanism you can think of in a really tight game. And it's overwhelming when you first see it. It truly is. But
it's just not really.
But once you've got into it, there's just so many different ways you can play it. And there's 6 unique captains in the game as well with their own decks, and some of them have their own powers.
That's true, yeah. Picard.
Picard up to
Michael,
Burnham.
It's just like very expansionable, no? Like it would be not just the Federation captains, if you know Star Trek, not the Federation captains Star Trek, could be like the Falcon, the Klingons, like could be everyone. Heavy-ish game, my number 1.
And there we go. That is 2024
Thanks
in a nutshell.
for watching, everyone. Hopefully you have a great day. See you next time. Bye.